nice skin, so gorgeous. We thank the life gorgeous. Thank the life gorgeous. I love the life gorgeous. Its torso is so tight.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Life Gorgeous. My name is Craig Kilborn. Some say Lord Kilby, others say Casual Craigers. This is where I share my magical life in hopes of improving your life. The focus groups have spoken. They like when I have my friends on. I answer fan questions. The friends weigh in on my answers and also answer themselves. We have two special guests today. They are actually friends, college roommates, I'm going to say, even if they didn't live together at college. They were college classmates. One of them you've seen before, Hank Perlman, the very opinionated man who pretends he doesn't like Paul McCartney. Hank Perlman is an owner of Hungry Man, which is a very successful commercial company. They do the commercials for the Super Bowl. And then his friend is Steve Elliott. Steve is a bright young man. Clever, somewhat soft-spoken and thoughtful. He used to be an executive at Comedy Central. Please welcome my friends, Hank Perlman and Steve Elliott. America, say hello.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
Okay, you guys have good energy this morning. That's great. So listen, this is what I was thinking. I like running things by you guys, and because you're both opinionated, and the viewers and the listeners enjoy that. Now, I say that I live above the fray. However, if I list my pet peeves, and I say I'm a perfectionist, then I think that's entertaining for people to hear little irritants in life, the dysfunction of society that bothers me. And maybe it does bother you or it doesn't. We're going to get to some of these bullet points in a moment. But first, you guys went to Tulane, down in New Orleans or outside of New Orleans. I believe it's in New Orleans. Is it in New Orleans? Yes?
It's uptown New Orleans.
And that's where you met, correct?
That is correct.
Were you guys roommates?
Never.
We were not.
We were not.
Okay. and famously, there was the Tulane point shaving scandal, and for the basketball team, when you were there, made national news. How did that affect you guys? And did it prepare you for watching The Sopranos? Did it affect you in business? Were you embarrassed? Steve, start with you.
It was definitely not the way you want the spotlight on your university, and I was at the game. I think, Hank, were you there as well?
Yeah. Memphis State.
It was a weird game. Tulane had a massive lead over a much heavier ranked, Memphis State. And then all of a sudden, passes were bouncing off people's heads. Balls were going over the hoop. So it was an awkward thing to see. I'd say it was a little embarrassing. No one likes to see become sort of talked about in that way.
How soon after that game did you guys find out it was point shaving? Is that months afterwards or what?
Yeah, it was about 3. I remember it being about 2 or 3 months. Like the game was in January or February, and the Sports Illustrated article and everything was maybe in April. Does that sound right, Steve?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Was it depressing for you guys?
You're young, you're idealistic. You think everything, everybody's trying their hardest, giving their 100%. And then you've got, Hot Rod Williams, taking a pass and stepping out of bounds for no reason. So yeah, they were playing Memphis State. Remember Keith Lee, Craig?
Yeah, I loved him.
Yeah.
I thought that's when I stopped scouting college players. I thought he was going to be a great pro. I thought he was going to be like Kevin McHale, but it didn't work out that way. Well, that's interesting. And you guys, I know you guys Hank, you love New Orleans still, right?
Love it. Love it.
Why is that?
A lot of personality. The people are great. It's one of the few American cities that really has a distinct personality in terms of food, music, culture. I love Mardi Gras parades. I think Jazz Fest is a lot of fun. I love the restaurants. I love the music. I love everything about it.
You know, they say in America, my favorite American city is San Francisco. They say that San Francisco and New Orleans are the most European cities in America. I don't know if that's true, but Hank, you don't like the French Quarter.
No, that's not true. I don't like to only spend time in the French Quarter. I think there's there's touristy part, like any city, Times Square in New York. You don't want to go to New York City and spend all your time in Times Square. I'd say same thing with New Orleans. You don't want to go there and spend all your time in the French Quarter.
Right. And who drank more in college, Steve or Hank? I think I know. Steve, what do you think? Who drank more in college?
Oh boy,
that's a trick question because I threw up more, but I probably drank more because I threw up and then I keep drinking.
Oh boy,
I wasn't gonna
I don't know if we want to admit that.
Up the vomiting, so we might. But yeah, Hank probably did partake more. I was a little bit more cautious.
And who was a better student?
That's a great question, Stephen.
We've actually never really compared our GPAs. I think, I did really well within my major as an English major. If I only counted those grades, I would have been graduating with honors. Unfortunately, French and the history of Japan and a few other things kind of brought me down a bit.
I actually had several classes with Steve, and we had a class our senior year called Jewish Mysticism and 20th Century Literature. And we were both, we don't know anything about that subject, but there was this beautiful girl named Teas. And if she's watching or listening, we've been talking about you for 35 years, Teas. We love you.
Yeah, it is. That's a cool name. I always like to think about the names of the beautiful women from high school. I don't always do it from college. So you said Teas, T-A-I-S, or what is it? I think
it was T-H-E-A-S, right? We never really got that far. But,
yeah, we were pretty, we kept to ourselves.
Is there any famous woman, actress, model, who Teas looks like?
Oh, great question.
Jeez.
Was she a brunette or a blonde?
Oh, she was a blonde beauty, straight hair, but sort of like artsy.
Peggy Lipton, straight hair, Peggy Lipton from the Mod Squad.
I don't.
Cheryl Ladd.
Glasses,
I'm just doing
maybe.
old.
Yeah,
she had
a little
glasses.
bit more intellectual. Yeah,
mix in like a librarian kind of, sexy librarian sort of thing.
Okay.
Librarian Peggy Lipton.
Okay. Hey Steve, so you majored in English. Yeah. What did the book The Great Gatsby, did that mean a lot to you growing up?
No, not really. I mean, to me, unfortunately it was a book that, I think I had to read maybe in 11th grade when you're really not that interested. And it's really one of those books I should probably go and read again. Right. Because it just, right now it sort of feels like a chore that I had to get through.
Right.
I preferred
it's interesting.
Tender as the Night more.
Okay. It's interesting what books, there's some that just, there was one that I mentioned, I couldn't put down one summer. It was a summer in college, and I had this boring job at a liquor store, and I was back in Hastings, and I was working at a liquor store, and my dad had it laying around, and it was Of Human Bondage. And for some reason, I believe it's Somerset Maugham, if I remember correctly, and I just flew through it in a couple days. But I also want to ask you, because I think this has to do with New Orleans. I never read this book. And I apologize, and I could still read it. The Confederacy of Dunces, a friend recommended it to me and gave it to me. And I don't know. Was it too absurd or what? Has one of you guys read that book or not?
Yeah. Ignatius.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite books. I think that, whether it holds up as much today, I don't know, but no book makes me laugh harder than Confederacy of Dunces. Ignatius Raleigh, the character, is just amazing and really, truly funny. And it's definitely absurd. It takes some getting used to. Right. I recommend it to people who actively hated it.
So you said it makes you laugh out loud. Didn't you ever read Loose Balls, the Life and Times of the ABA, or what's going on over here? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I've laughed at other books, but not quite as hard as Confederacy of Dunces. It's been a movie that has been in Hollywood development since Belushi, I think. John Candy had a version. I think Jack Black. It's probably impossible to make.
Right.
Although I hear HBO has it now. I don't know.
So clearly you're following that storyline if it's ever going to get made. I wouldn't say obsessed with it. Anyway, so let me go to the pet peeves in life, because this is what I like doing. Because Hank, there was this one pet peeve, and some of my friends, it was valet parking, and these guys were like, just valet so we can walk in. I said, let me go park. There are reasons I don't valet. I'll tell you why. I'll just walk in and I'll get a table. No, I want to walk in with you. They were very childish. And then I ran it by Hank, and Hank agreed with me on valet parking. I don't do it because I saw at the Miami Heat game years ago, I've told the story, the valets were, scraping the bottom of the Ferraris as they brought them back to the arena from the parking lot. They were playing games. They were mistreating. I don't want anyone mistreating my car. And then as Hank says, why pay for something you can do yourself? So Steve Elliott, do you have any opinion on valet parking?
It doesn't come up here in New York, but when I've been in LA, I have found it a convenience because looking for parking, one of my pet peeves is people who are late. And I just think it's rude. I mean, things come up, traffic, whatever, but to me, leave early. So I think that when valet parking can certainly save time. It just feels like, these guys are trying to make a living. Throw them a few bucks.
I'll give them money just walking by. Just say, it's not the money. But you're talking about a rent-a-car when you're in LA. You're not talking about your roadster that you have in Manhattan.
No, absolutely.
Hey,
so it would probably be very different if it was my own car.
Hank, do you still have the same feelings about valet?
Yeah, I definitely respect your opinion, but I respect Steve's too. I understand his thing about people being late. One thing I will say is, Craig, as long as I've known you, you're very punctual. You're not late. If anything, you get there early. So I could
always get there early.
I could see why, looking for a parking space wouldn't make you late, because you're not that person.
Right.
And there's also a thing about, frugal. Frugal to me is different than cheap. They're two very different things. I totally
agree. I love that you said that. Frugal's a good word. Cheap is a very negative word. It's a criticism.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing the value of $1, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is important. And I could go back to, I love this story, but when I was in ninth grade, I could have played on varsity on basketball. I did as a sophomore, and I led the team in scoring and rebounding as a sophomore in varsity. But I took basketball seriously, and I played all summer long. When the kids were out fishing at the lake, Kilborn was working on his jump shot and his dribbling. And when I was on the ninth grade team, we had so many guys going out. 2 teams of 12. That's 24 players. 2 different teams in ninth grade. Who had the canvas Converse? Everyone else had the leather Nikes for $40. My dad says, I'm not buying, and my dad made money. I'm not buying leather. The soles are going to wear out. The leather's still good. I'm not buying leather Nikes for $40. You're getting the $13, the $20 canvas Converse. I was the best player on the team wearing the cheapest sneakers. And I didn't care because they couldn't guard me. I don't know why I'm yelling this early in the morning. I'm sorry. But what do you think of that story of Kilborn wearing the cheapest sneakers, being the best player on the team? And I shouldn't say cheap, because Converse are great, man. They used to wear them in the 60s. Chamberlain and Bill Russell, they'd wear, canvas Converse. But what do you think of that story?
What did Pete Maravich wear?
He wore Pro Keds. He did. I'm serious. And the fact that I know that is just tremendous. But he wore Pro Keds. Nate Archibald wore Pro Keds. There was Nike, and there was Dr. J wore Converse and all that. Both those were leather Converse. But do you like that story where the old man wouldn't buy the $40 Nikes, and I had to wear canvas Converse.
I like the story. It's a very sort of Jimmy Stewart, it's not, the shoes don't make the man.
Thank you.
You brought it all out on the court and proved.
I think your dad taught you a valuable lesson, and that's why you don't valet park. I mean, I think your dad taught you, the value of a dollar. I think it's a good lesson.
I'm going to slip in this bullet point now because and we'll go back to the other pet peeves. I wanted to ask you guys, because you just reminded me of when you said the sneakers don't make the man. I want to ask you guys, as you're growing up, this is a sports story and a question. Words of inspiration from your coaches. And when I was at Montana State, you had the head coach, you had the assistant coach who would go over the scouting report of the other team. And, there's a thing where Chuck Daly says, who coached the Pistons, said at some point the players get tired of hearing your voice. So you want other coaches to talk. But we had a third and fourth assistant. And I'll never forget this fourth assistant as we were getting ready to go out there in the locker, from the locker room. And he said something. They don't always get to say anything, the fourth assistant, just words of inspiration. And I liked what he said. I'm going to tell you in a second what he said. It's hard to beat this one. I really like it. But do you guys have any quick words of inspiration from coaches that they said to you? Like the giving 110% and all that kind of stuff. Do you guys remember any, or have you heard any from professional sports?
I actually do. This is going to surprise you, but I was not a great athlete in high school. I played soccer. I played, baseball for a little bit, then I gave it up to pursue the theater. But I did play soccer. And I remember my coach, Stu Bush, we had a good soccer team. He basically said to me that I don't have the skills to beat these guys, but I've got the tenacity to out hustle them. So it was that idea that, know your strength. And if you just work really hard, you can get in the mix. And I knocked a lot of people down, which I probably shouldn't have done in soccer, but I was hustling. So
right. That's good. That is good. And the words of inspiration that I will tell you is all about hustle. I just like I liked how he said it. So Hank, do you have anything? I know you're a hockey fan. Is there anything they say, or is there anything growing up? You also wrestled in high school. Did they say anything like save the vomit, for after the match? Or
I remember one wrestling coach, and I think he was an assistant coach, saying, Perlman, don't be a head case. And I don't know what that meant. I don't know if he thought I was before I was overthinking. Don't be a head case. Like before a match, I think I was a little bit nervous, and it was insulting. But I do remember it, and I do, so.
Okay, here it is. So we're in the huddle. We have our hands up, and everyone's done the fourth assistant coach. Every loose ball is ours. Every loose ball is ours, which is, the same thing. We're going to out hustle the other guy.
You're out hustling him. Yeah,
I love that. I just love that. Back to pet peeves. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a pedestrian. I drive, but I'm a pedestrian, and I'm very careful. I might be the only person that does this. In California, there are crosswalks. We have the right of way. I do not want to slow down a car. I wave them through. I wait. And then if they stop, I either wave them through or I sprint across. I don't like stopping these big mechanical vehicles. As a pedestrian, I do not linger in crosswalks. I sprint across. Go ahead, Hank. What do you think of that?
It's funny. We have another thing in common. I tend to sprint across too. I tend to not want to, I'm going slower. They've got a car. So I get out of the crosswalk, but I don't like here in New York. I live in New York City. I don't like, they take turns. You'll be in the crosswalk,
Right.
you'll be crossing, and they'll turn right in front of you. So I see both sides of it, the vehicle and the pedestrian
Now,
side.
I've seen you out here in LA, and I might have to disagree with you. I've seen you say, no, it's our turn. They have to stop. I have the right of way. And I said, yeah, you want to get hit and have the right of way? So I've seen you linger and be a snob in the crosswalk.
Well, when they have a stop sign, when the car has a stop sign, I don't want them to go right through, blow through the stop sign, but I do want them to stop, and then I'll briskly walk through.
Okay.
Because they have the stop sign. But obviously,
maybe
if
you
they
were
don't have
telling a
stop sign-
story and you thought it was an interesting story, so you weren't walking briskly. Maybe that's what it was. Steve, you have an opinion on pedestrians in a crosswalk?
I am mostly a pedestrian here in New York City, but I appreciate what Hank was saying. I remember one time, and it's all going to come back to what we were talking about. I was driving with a couple people, and we had the right of way, but a pedestrian was going through, and my friend said, "We have the right of the way," and the other guy said, "Dead right." I guess he was implying that you could kill somebody with that right of way, so you have to always use your head, and
right.
That's
well. My thing is, I don't like. I mean, this is people are floating and lingering, and they're not thinking, and they're in their little space, which is interesting because I do jokes about being self-absorbed because I am self-absorbed, but I joke about it and I exaggerate it. But when I'm out in the real life, I'm not. I'm careful. When there are two cars coming down a narrow road, I always move over for the other person because they don't care. They don't think. People don't think. But this leads me to the grocery store, where I never go in a grocery store floating and looking around. What should I get today? I have a list, and the list is usually mental in my head. I sometimes will put it on my phone, and I know where I'm going, and I'm in and out of there. So I had a confrontation a few years ago at Trader Joe's where I'm coming around the corner with my cart, and there are these two people. I don't think the gender is important, but they were just kind of spaced out. I don't think they knew each other, and they had their carts were askew where I couldn't really get through. I could ask them, if I asked them to move, they would say, "Oh, wait, which way are you going?" Well, yeah. So I squeezed through and bumped one of them. And I think I looked back and said, sorry. And then while I'm at the checkout at the cashier, this woman comes up and she says, "Excuse me, I just want you to know that you just bumped into me." And she was kind of timid, but I know it was a big moment for her to come and confront me. And I dominated the moment. I stopped what I was doing. I looked her in the eyes and I put out my hand and I said, "Thank you for telling me that. I made a mistake. I apologize." And she went, "Oh, okay, thank you." And she walked. I said to the cashier, I said, "How'd you think I handled that?" He goes, "That was great." So I went leadership on her. I owned my mistake. But I almost said there is a urgent care 2 blocks away if you're struggling. But my point is, what about people that are floating and spaced out at the market and lingering? Hank?
I think what you're getting at is you got to be considerate of other people. You got to, you want people to be aware of what they're doing and how they might be inconveniencing others. And you're so right. Not everybody's like that. And it's frustrating sometimes. I get it. I hear you.
Steve Elliott.
Well,
voice of reason, Steve Elliott.
I'm going to counter that just a little bit. I mean, I'm usually a list person. I go in and know what I'm getting. But at the same time, sometimes you see a guava and you get inspired. You stop and think, what can I do with this? And so then if I've got Craig bumping into my cart because he's going through to get his, diet. I don't know what you're getting.
I don't get diet.
You're not drinking diet soda.
Burrata.
You're drinking low-fat milk, though.
I know where the wheel of cheese is. I memorize all the departments at Trader Joe's.
I think we just have to make room for people because some people are looking for inspiration, some people are led by inspiration.
Wait, does he like that? Does he like what he just said?
It was.
I think he.
It was
I
good.
think.
Your
I
fans are
think
gonna.
he. I think. I. It sounded good even if it didn't make sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about? Here's
Give
the
me
one.
the
This is an
quote.
this is an easy one. Have you guys ever gotten into? I was raised not to use the word dumb or stupid, but I'm using the word dumb now. Dumb conversation. So this was one the other day, and it's a young person, and I'm going to protect the person. Someone in their 20s, and I was mentioning that I don't like flying. I don't like turbulence. I also said something. I just said, I obviously, when I die, I want to die peacefully in my sleep, or in my bed when I'm 85 or whatever, and I don't want to die in a plane crash. And she was like, well, you don't feel, it's instantaneous. You don't even feel anything in a plane crash. So this becomes now, you have more of a chance of getting in a car accident than a plane crash, which I've already heard, but this is a young person. So I just was like, I didn't really participate, but I said, well, when you're veering into the mountain, everyone's screaming. Well, you can be Zen. You can just be Zen about it. Okay. So these are dumb conversations. So I didn't participate, but this is just people being irritating. So any thoughts on not participating in dumb conversations where people want to be contrarians and they just are? Hank, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I've never understood people saying, "Oh, when you die this way, you don't feel it." Or how did they know? How do you know you don't feel a plane crash? Wouldn't that hurt? Wouldn't that hurt? I mean, how do you know? I mean, I guess if the plane like just blew up, but if the plane crashes, like I was watching this documentary about Leonard Skinner dying, them dying in the plane crash. You can't tell me that didn't hurt. That hurt.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too morbid to talk about because I really loathe flying. But Steve, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, try and if I'm going back to the talking with dumb,
yes.
I can avoid, I'll just sort of if I know there's no where this conversation is going, I will usually just sort of agree and hope that I can wander off because I don't want why have the confrontation. I'm kind of with you guys both on the plane crash. Seems painful. I'd like to avoid it.
The other thing I want to make a point, because I've said this to other guests, but I don't really judge people's intelligence as much as others do, because I think it's rude, but I also think it makes the other person feel good. It makes the person judging feel good, but you have to realize there are intellectuals that have different worldviews and different opinions. And I think it's kind of lame if someone disagrees with you to say, oh, they're dim-witted. And I also have this theory that once you've reached a certain level of intelligence, you can comprehend a lot of different concepts and issues. So I'm calling the conversation dumb. I'm not calling the person dumb, because there are bright people that will say asinine things. And sometimes they're just doing it to be stubborn. Which brings up debating. So I don't participate in debates. I know some people enjoy the joust, and I've worked with people that really enjoy that. That's what makes them feel good. And I always say, well, I already feel good when I wake up. I don't need to win this debate. And also there's this thing where a skilled debater conceivably can argue a point they don't even believe in, but just say, especially when, if you're done. So I want to ask you guys if you've gotten into some debates, maybe political debates, the ones I really avoid, where if you say a number, like there's a survey and then you say a legitimate point and the other person goes, well, actually those numbers are simply wrong. Oh, I guess I lost. Okay. But do you guys get into, Hank, do you get into political debates and how does it go?
Yeah, I've sort of in the last 10 years gotten into fewer and fewer political debates because it seems to go nowhere. And Steve, I remember you debating about was that the Washington Redskins changing their name?
Oh boy.
Remember that debate?
Yeah.
That was a big
do
debate.
Remember that one. That didn't end well.
What was it? Was that with Hank or with somebody else?
No, it was with another friend.
It was with another college friend who felt that the name had great value, and I felt that it was time to change. This was like 10 years ago. So they finally, got around to it.
Got a little ugly. Got ugly, that argument.
Got a little heated. Hank was a big. Hank likes to create debate opportunities.
Sure,
One
that's
of his
Hank.
early
Yeah,
things.
there are different. Yeah, there are different sides to Hank, but it is entertaining. He is entertaining.
Right.
Like he was on the podcast a while back, and he did exactly what I wanted him to do. He ripped McCartney, and then later he says, "I'm just kidding. I like him." So that's the entertainer in Hank. Whether or not he really believes that, who cares? I know, who cares? But he is entertaining when you're the contrarian.
It's
yes.
fun.
And he had a game that we used to do back in the early days after college. It was called The Void, where, you would put, you could explain it better than I am. All I remember was, should Abraham Lincoln, go into the void, or,
it was two
and that
people.
person would then never exist. Two people.
Right.
Yeah. If you had to throw either Abraham Lincoln or, Bob Dylan into a void, who would you throw into a void? That kind of thing.
And they would never have lived.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can answer that one. Because I don't listen to Bob Dylan. I know he's supposed to be tremendous, but I don't. There are a lot of, Lincoln was pretty significant. That was an easy game.
Well, it was usually not. It was more Lincoln, Washington, Dylan, McCartney,
right?
Things like that. Twiggy and Kate Moss. Sort of
Scottie Pippen or Glenn Close. That kind of thing.
I'm going to say Scottie Pippen because there's so many great ball players, and Glenn Close was tremendous in Fatal Attraction.
You're right.
Don't you ignore me. I will not be ignored. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the Life Gorgeous quiz. Simple questions, profound insights. We'll start with Hank. This is for both of you, but I think it's easier if I say a person's name. Have you ever seen a Steven Seagal movie?
Ooh. I don't think so. Wait, is he I get him mixed up with the other guy. Who's the guy from Brussels?
That's my second one. Have you ever seen Jean-Claude Van Damme?
I've seen him. I don't think I've ever seen a Steven Seagal movie.
Steve?
I have seen Under Siege.
Oh boy,
Steven Seagal movie, and Hank and I together saw a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie with Wilford Brimley. And he punched a snake. It was
and he fell off a horse, or he got shot off a horse or something, right?
Wilford Brimley fell off the horse. Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen either of those guys in a movie. Have you ever seen a Jason Statham movie?
Yes.
So have I.
I've seen two. The Bank Job.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good movie.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Did you ever see one, Hank?
I don't know if I have or not.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't want to lie.
Okay. Right. Okay. I'm changing. Next question. Right. We're going to start with Steve. Then we're going to go to Hank. Steve, right now, order a 3-item omelet, and I'm going to tell you guys which one of your orders is better. A 3-item omelet.
Monterey Jack, chorizo, and onions.
Woo! Hank, don't be influenced. What were you going to say when I asked the question?
Mushrooms, tomatoes, and Swiss cheese.
Both very, very good. I was going to say whoever said bacon or sausage. So I'm going to give it to Steve because of the chorizo. You have to have onions and cheese, and then it's the third one, and I like Denver omelets, and I like spinach omelets, and I like what you did, Hank, but I'm going to go chorizo as the winner. Steve Elliott, Hank Perlman has a problem with McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey. Steve, what actor bothers you?
Boy, that's a good question.
Take your time.
We edit the pause out.
Yeah, it's a long pause. That puppy.
Yeah. Wait. I don't know if I have anybody who Steven Seagal. I don't have anybody that really, I think, has the same impact that McConaughey does on Hank.
And Steve, the infamous day when we were at this apartment in Los Angeles and Hank was going on about his dislike of McCartney, I believe you were there because you've known him since college, and I was highly entertained. And Hank afterwards was like, did that bother you? Was that okay what I just did about McCartney? I said, very entertaining. Anything else? Anybody else bother you? And he goes, McConaughey. I don't get McConaughey. So that's my memory. Does that sound right? I mean, I'm sure it was you there.
I know I was there for, that one night, and where McCartney came up. McConaughey if it was back then, McConaughey wouldn't have been quite who he is now. So I'm wondering if that was a different conversation. But I was definitely there for Hank's throwdown about McCartney. Impassioned.
Hank, is there any other actor besides McConaughey that bothers you?
Yes, I know there is. I just want to think about it. An actor that bothers me. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to edit this out, Craig. I want to come up with something. No, nobody else bothers me.
Okay. So because there are popular actors that, I never
liked Tom Selleck.
Oh, interesting. You bring him up. Yeah. Interesting.
I never liked Tom Selleck.
Okay. So I like Tom Selleck. I used to not have a strong feeling about him because I didn't watch Magnum PI, but I have a soft spot for tall, good-looking guys. I think did he play volleyball at USC or something? He was an athlete, but
I think he played baseball.
Baseball, maybe it was baseball. But recently, there are these movies. Now you're going to laugh. They're based on a novel. It's called Jesse Stone, and they're CBS movies and the Hallmark Channel. And they're these movies that have good ratings. He plays Jesse Stone, a cop from LA who has a drinking problem and is divorced and goes to Paradise, Massachusetts. He's the sheriff now in this small town and has to solve crimes. Very comfortable. It's like comfort food. They're good. I say they're kind of clean cut and innocent, but because he's divorced, every attractive young woman in this small town goes out with him. So that's entertaining, but I like him and I like the way he plays Jesse Stone. I like his delivery. He's a minimalist. He doesn't say too much. So you guys have ever heard of Jesse Stone or not? The series?
No? I have not, but I'm going to be, he doesn't have a love interest that just rotate through the town?
So, what's that? As far as
is there anybody else on the show that other than Tom Selleck?
No, there are a bunch. Yeah, there are a bunch of people that are on the show. Sean Young was on an episode with him. What's his name? It's good. It's. I like mysteries. I like crime. I like I don't know if you know the TV series Bosch, but I like Bosch. So I like. Say that again.
I'm a big Bosch fan.
How come?
I think, well, I like the books, and I think that they did a really good job of capturing sort of a lot of the moody LA sort of vibe. I like Titus Welliver. I think he's a good actor. I think he did a good job.
100% right on all those things. The LAPD actually says it's the most realistic show, but I've had other friends say, I watch because of Titus. He has a great voice. That's the thing. He has a great voice. And I just love it. It's like, I remember my dad used to watch and he said, don't ever cross Bosch. If you cross him, you're in trouble. Like, I just like how he was a strong character. And it's now Bosch Legacy, which is the new series. He's now a private detective. All right. So that was good. Do both of you, I know Hank might have an issue with this actor, and I want to see if Steve does too. He's a legend. I don't think anyone will duplicate his career as an actor-director. Clint Eastwood. Do you guys have a problem? We'll start with Steve. Do you have a problem with Clint Eastwood?
You know, no. I mean, yes. I mean, I love Clint Eastwood movies. I grew up on those spaghetti westerns. I grew up on the Dirty Harry movies. I thought he's made some, terrific movies as a director. I think for me, some of his politics as he got older, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The talking to the chair at the Republican convention. It's hard for me to kind of fully separate that, which I guess shame on me, but I haven't really been able to fully let go of that. But I think he's an amazing, part of Hollywood history.
Yeah. Go ahead, Hank.
I don't remember ever saying I didn't like him. I think I made fun of some of the orangutan movies, and I think I
read
said,
between the lines. I read between the lines.
I think I said I like Steve McQueen and Paul Newman better than Clint Eastwood. You and I were talking, and we were ranking, and I think I ranked Steve McQueen and Paul Newman ahead of Clint Eastwood. But that doesn't mean I don't like.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't like Clint Eastwood.
And just for the record, if someone thinks I'm where I rank those guys, you started by saying you had just seen Bullet, which is probably my favorite Steve McQueen movie, and you compared Steve McQueen and Clint, and I'm a big Steve McQueen fan, so I'll rank him above Clint. And then I brought up Paul Newman as someone who is pretty special as an actor. I think Paul Newman, if we have to compare them, is a better actor than Steve McQueen. Paul Newman was a very good actor, in my opinion. And The Verdict is an amazing movie, which I thoroughly enjoy with Charlotte Rampling. So, no, I thought I was pretty sure that the Clint at the Republican convention would influence some people and throw people off. And, but I really like Dirty Harry. Plus I know Clint's ex-wife, and I got to have dinner with Clint a few times, and I had him on the show. So I find him, this may sound odd, when he was younger, very good looking guy, had a dynamic presence. There are people, the late Ray Liotta, who said Clint can't act. But they've said that about other kind of stoic figures. And he has his own way of acting. I recommend In the Line of Fire with Rene Russo and John Malkovich dominates that. Yeah. But so I'm a Clint fan, but I kind of thought that you guys might have been thrown off by him. And since I have you here, Steve, I've asked a number of my friends if they've ever seen this particular movie. And so far, only Gibby has seen it.
Oh, boy.
Gary Oldman in The Darkest Hour. He won an Oscar for his portrayal of Winston Churchill.
Oh, sure. I saw it. Gary Oldman was a deserved Oscar in it. I mean, the makeup took a little settling in, but I thought it was great. I'm a big Churchill fan, so I loved it.
What a nice, level-headed young man you are. That's comforting to hear. Okay, here's a funny one. As a child, I one day found an album called The Bee Gees Songbook for 88 cents. All the Bee Gees greatest hits, 88 cents, The Bee Gees Songbook. And I went home and played it, and it didn't sound like the Bee Gees. And at the very bottom of the album in small print, PK and the Sound Explosion.
Wow.
Wow. Did you guys ever make a bad purchase with an album? Hank, you're nodding.
Yes, I did. I bought one of those K-Tel albums where it had like it advertised that it had this song and that song, but when you got it home, it only had like 15 seconds of each song. It didn't really have the whole song. So yes, that was 1973, I believe. That mistake was made.
I mean, it's terrible. Right?
Maybe some. Yeah, I felt. I felt like it was my mistake. I owned it. But,
and the thing is, I knew the value of $1 back then, or 88 cents. I rationalized. I went to garage sale and it was a real Barry White album for like, 60 cents. And I said, I blew it with the Bee Gees album, but the Barry White album is in great condition. And I made, I only got it for 60 cents. So that's how I rationalized. So I didn't feel too bad about myself. Steve, did you screw up that way as well?
Yeah, I had the same KTEL debacle that Hank did. I didn't remember it being shortened versions. I remember it being like you had, with other people singing the hit songs.
Do you like,
which was very distressing.
Do you like the name? I remember PK and the Sound Explosion.
I bet PK made a nice living doing that.
Oh, he's living, his kids are living down in Florida in a mansion right now, just to let you know. By the way, when I did the Late Late Show, I would we had a theme song written by Chris Isaak, but I would enter to Wild Cherry, play that funky music, White Boy. And the guy who wrote that and sang it lived down in Florida. And he would send me a box of cigars every year because I would use it. And he at first we couldn't afford it, but he called me and he said, I got another version. It's not the master, but it sounds the same. The 15-second snippet you're playing sounds the same, but the studio doesn't own it. And so it's, how they have a master that is the one, but this one wasn't the master, but it sounded great. But he lived down in Florida. Everyone lives down in Florida. Last question for the Life Gorgeous quiz. Start with Steve Elliott. Chocolate shake or vanilla shake?
Chocolate shake.
Boo, boo. And why do you say that?
To me, most vanilla shakes don't have a lot of strong vanilla flavor to them. And I'm not a big shake guy. I'm not a big, sweet tooth, but if I was going to go, I would go chocolate.
Right. Hank, I don't want to influence you, but what was your answer prior to me groaning?
No, I like vanilla shakes.
Yes.
But I like chocolate shakes too. But if I had to choose and I could only make one, vanilla.
Why?
Well, I like vanilla. I actually have I think chocolate shakes don't actually taste chocolate to me. It's not like real chocolate. Like vanilla, I get that vanilla flavor. I don't know. I like a vanilla shake.
I find it more nuanced, the way I live my life. And chocolate is overpowering. I think when I told Gibby, I asked him this question. He goes, I know exactly what you're going to say. You probably find chocolate to be barbaric. So I enjoyed that.
Wow. Let me ask you, Craig, if I had said chorizo shake, would I have actually won this category?
That's disgusting. But that reminds me, when I used to work up in Monterey, I had to cover the Gilroy Garlic Festival, and they had garlic ice cream just to show off. It wasn't good, but they thought it was cool to say, we have garlic ice cream. That is the Life Gorgeous quiz. We have time now for a couple fan questions. These are questions that the people ask. You can go to the YouTube channel and ask them, or my Instagram and ask them, and Steve and Hank will weigh in. We only have a few. Lord Kilby, thank you for giving back with the Life Gorgeous. How comfortable are you in the kitchen? Well, that's interesting because I kind of approach it the way I approach listening to jazz music. I'm not an expert with jazz. I listen to what I like. I like Miles Davis. I like Bill Evans. There's some saxophone players I probably don't know or listen to. I've been cooking my whole life. I used to make an omelet when I was a kid because I saw Julia Childs on PBS flip it with one hand in the pan. I'm comfortable making certain things. The other day I bought burrata, which I've never purchased before. I always order at a restaurant. I have fresh basil in the garden here, and I had tomatoes and red onions. It was very simple with the balsamic and olive oil. Nothing, that's easy. And I cook, I tell people my big dish is cioppino, blah, blah, blah. I'm comfortable cooking. I can follow a recipe. I'm nothing spectacular. First, what do you think of the answer? And then tell me, are you guys good in the kitchen? Start with Hank.
I've been impressed by you in the kitchen. I think you're selling yourself short. You made tri-tip for me one time.
I was there for that.
And it was arguably the best tri-tip I've ever had.
No, it was a little rough. It wasn't the best. It was wasn't that tender that particular day.
Yeah.
No, a little tough.
Put up a bit of a fight, if I remember.
That was the famous line. It put up a bit of a fight. Yeah.
But I still was pretty impressed by what you could do with some tri-tip. But no, I'm.
You like cooking. I know you used to, at your old apartment, you'd grill salmon, which is always fun with.
I love grilling. I love grilling fish, but I'm not Steve. I'm going to leave some time for Steve because Steve's very good in the kitchen.
I enjoy cooking, and I'm very good at it.
Are you better than your wife at cooking?
Oh.
Yes, and she would agree. She doesn't care for it. If she could, she would take a food pill at the end of the day because making dinner is too much of a hassle. But I enjoy taking the time, having music, or listening to a book, and cooking. So come over for dinner.
Craigers, I love when you wear vests. Not a question, just a comment. I like Craigers in a vest. I will make a comment on that. My brother thinks it's a little over the top. I wear it. I like how streamlined I look. It puts my dress shirt is now not puffing out at my belt. And I love vests. It's my own thing. It makes me happy to have a martini when I wear a vest and a sport coat. It might throw my brother off and others. I find it less ostentatious than what's it called when you put it in your pocket? A kerchief? What's that called?
Pocket square.
Pocket square. I don't wear pocket squares, rarely do. Go ahead. What do you think of my answer and your opinion on vests?
I want to ask you a question. What's the difference between a vest and a waistcoat?
I don't know. People have asked me that before. I think they're interchangeable is what I'm going to say. A waistcoat might be higher. It might go up your torso. Your favorite word might go up your torso higher up to your chest. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. Steve, go ahead.
I love it. I love the look on you. I have a number in my closet that I never wear, and I feel kind of inspired to do so now. I'm going to bring one next time I come to LA, and we're going to vest it up.
Yeah, and just to let the people know listening, these guys will drink. Hank loves his red wine, as do I. But as far as hard liquor, if I remember correctly, Steve, you're not a bourbon guy. What are you? What is your drink?
I love a good Manhattan.
That's it. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a Rob Roy and a Manhattan? I used to. I don't know if one of them is
made with rye.
One is whiskey and one is scotch. I can't remember. Sweet vermouth. No, one might have sweet vermouth. One might have dry vermouth. Let's see. Let's do one more before I have to go on my power walk. Kilby, longtime fan. You've stated there are some popular movies and TV shows you haven't seen, but you also like Bosch and the sophisticated British miniseries, The Night Manager. Is it safe to say you have a pretty good range in what you like? I don't know if I have much of a range, but I am very opinionated in what I like. Bosch is obviously more blue collar than The Night Manager. I tend to like white collar crime shows, but I can throw down and watch a blue collar show, just like I can listen to my Jobim and my jazz and my bossa nova, and I can listen to Scorpions and Eddie Money. I have that range. I can go to a biker bar. And I also like to say, jokingly, I go to a biker bar and I go to the jukebox and I put on Careless Whisper just to see how they react. Go ahead. My friend Goldie really does a good job of analyzing my answer and then weighing in. You guys aren't really analyzing my answers, but that's okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to analyze your answer. I think you said, I think you do have eclectic tastes. I think you can go very highbrow and sophisticated, but at the same time you have some guilty pleasures, which I've always respected that about you. And I think you enjoy lots of different things, and you're not. I don't think you're a snob. I would not use the word snob with you at all, and I think you described it the right way.
Yeah, and I will say, I'm down to earth, but I find humor in certain things. So when I listen to Scorpions, maybe this is a little snobbish. I'm kind of laughing at them, but well, and Eddie Money, I know. I mean, my brother, the biggest guilty pleasure I have is Benny Mardones Into the Night. I mean, I just think I used to listen to it before I played ball, and I'd go out and score 30. I mean, I still like when he leaves it all on the floor at the end of that song, but I know it's somewhat comedic. Steve Elliott, go ahead.
Well, look, I mean, the main word in guilty pleasure is pleasure. And if these things bring you joy, then you don't have to defend them. You don't have to say, I feel, awkward for saying I like Eddie Money. I like Eddie Money. So I think you are a complicated, person who has a lot of different likes and interests.
Have you ever, you guys have heard of Walt Whitman, correct? Mm-hmm. You've heard of Walt Whitman? One of his famous lines is, "Do I contradict myself? Absolutely. I am complex." Oh, that was a joy. That was a complete joy. Thank you guys for joining The Life Gorgeous. And I will have you guys on again, and I look forward to it.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We'll see you next time. And remember, young people, I am proud of you.